Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Relief Factor Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
We are Red Eye Radio all across America. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, we made it to Friday.
We did make
not?
it to Friday.
Oh, man, what a day yesterday again. Jeez, it just doesn't stop.
Kristi Noem didn't make it to Friday. I mean, professionally.
Well, finally, I mean, we've never been a fan of hers. We've never been a fan. I would hope that Pam Bondi is next.
I would hope so. I would really hope so. There, you know, you and I were talking in the pre-show meeting. I've said, I don't know how many times I've mentioned it on the air, but too many of these individuals, and it's kind of the influencer approach, because some of the influencers kind of, to me, have this in them, like they're running into Trump's wheelhouse. He's the captain of the ship. They're running in, taking the wheel, saying, I'll do this, I'll do this. They're going, because that, if you think about it, that was part, not all, but part of the MAGA thing was proving you're more MAGA than anybody else. And then toward the, you know, I won't say the end, but here lately it's been, before it started, you know, to erode with MTG and others, it was Trump's not MAGA enough. I'm more MAGA than Trump. I mean, it just, that was the feeling. They weren't actually saying that. That just seemed to be the feeling. I don't want a social media star in the administration or in office. Now, the exception would be Trump, who not only is a social media star, he's a TV star. He's been famous for a long time. And he's also owns a social media company. Now, having said that, he's also, based on his actions as president, we talked about this, I think, yesterday or day before, he actually he's a great president. He just happens also to be a great president, and he is the captain. And so this social media approach, we talked about Pam Bondi, I think it was yesterday, and we have a few times. You know, the whole thing with the binders, that was a soup show like I've never seen. And it was horrible. And with Kristi Noem, you know, the story got out about the affair. I think we've mentioned it once or twice, the rumor of the affair with Corey Lewandowski. And then, you know, she was being questioned by the Senate the other day and never said no when she was asked about it. And her husband is seated right there by her. Right, I think he was behind her. And that went on for too long. And one of the Democrats, I forget who it was, said, we're just waiting for you to say no, that you're not having an affair or didn't have an affair with Lewandowski. And the word is, and these are source stories, of course, Trump was furious about that. I don't think that's the entire reason. I think Trump hasn't been happy with Kristi Noem. And I go back to the meeting that she demanded a face-to-face with the president after everything that was going on in Minnesota and all of that fell out. She demanded a meeting with him. And I thought to myself, that's a wrong approach, if that's true. Again, a source story. But she did have the meeting. We know that. And with Pam Bondi, I mean, there are, and I would go based on the nature of the cases, the handling of the whole binder thing with the Epstein files and social media influencers. What are you thinking? What in the world are you thinking? So I don't know. I don't know where it's going to go with Pam Bondi. I do know that there are rumblings that people that work under Pam Bondi are not happy at all. I don't know to what extent. I don't know how many numbers we're talking about, how many people. But the president, if you go back to the whole, and this started in, I think, 2015, 2016, his little war room that he set up when he first started running in Trump Tower. And it was basically at the top of the board was, let Trump be Trump. Now, that takes on a whole new meaning 10 years later. But I would say it applies certainly after he becomes president. You can't act as if you're running the show. You're serving at the pleasure of the president. And I think if you look at Marco Rubio, it appears, again, I'm not there with him every day, but it appears he's doing exactly what he should be doing as Secretary of State. And he's not backing down from the media. He gets a very good grade for me so far on being Secretary of State. That's what you want to see. It would make me, with this particular president, if I was in any of those positions, not that I'm qualified, but if I were, I'd be reporting to him like he is the captain. I'd be constantly communicating with him or through Susie Wiles. It really is where most of the communication goes. Even at that level, unless you're Marco Rubio, you don't get as much FaceTime as you would think. But the point being, I think that would be my approach. I'm here to serve his agenda.
Well, I think when you talked about Pam Bondi going in and Kristi Noem going in and demanding a meeting, I believe that's because she was ticked off. Mm. Look, it was Stephen Miller who came out and said, here's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
We're going to have a quota. This isn't enough. We need more. We need more.
Yeah.
The president was behind that.
Oh, no.
The president didn't.
We talked about that.
Right. The president didn't come out and say, no, just go after criminals. What happened was it backfired against them. They believed, Stephen Miller and Kristi Noem believed, that if they publicized and threw out over-the-top rhetoric, even before the facts were in. Remember, she said this was domestic terrorism, and then had to pull that back.
Right. Oh, no, there were several moments like that in those scenarios.
Because Homeland's like, well, I don't know whether it was or not,
right.
And what you could tell, he was not happy with that at all. I think she went in and she said, I did what you told me to do. It didn't work. And now you're angry at me?
No, that's
and I believe that there's
on the issue, absolutely, 100%. But the idea of, and again, if it's true, she demanded that meeting. Doesn't matter how mad you are, you don't get mad at Donald Trump.
Right. Well, you do if you believe you're doing exactly what he tells you to do, and then it all gets reversed.
On the surface, I know what you're saying. Right. Yes, when you talk about the issue, yes.
But I understand what you're saying.
Yeah,
you don't go ahead.
You don't throw things back at this particular president. You know what I mean?
But that still wasn't enough to let her go. I think it was what happened yesterday.
Oh no, I think it was. I think
the $200 million where she's featuring herself and then the
and she talked about that whether Senate thing,
whether she's actually having it or not, and the thing is that her going before, the Senate was a perfect opportunity to just pound on Democrats about not wanting to defend the Department of Homeland Security while we're at war with Iran.
Yeah.
And to pound them on it over and over again. And it doesn't matter whether you think of Tillis, but your two Republican senators, him and Kennedy, going after her. That's the last thing that Trump wanted.
Yeah.
He claims he had no idea this $200 million was being spent. And he didn't like the way that it was a perfect opportunity to put the Democrats and back on their back foot.
And she was saying in that hearing that he approved that.
Right, and the quote is he differs with that opinion.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Again, the whole idea of letting Trump be Trump means you might be doing something opposite tomorrow, and it might be the opposite of what he told you the day before. The point being is that you have to follow his lead. We talk about that meeting with Susie Wiles and, what is it, 75 to 100, basically surrogates that were there at that chicken and steak buffet.
Yeah.
And basically, you guys need to stay on point. He doesn't have to stay on point. You guys need to stay on point, basically. That's
right.
and
well, no, you're right. That's what. And when you look at, for example, when you look at a Marco Rubio, he's always on point. When you look at a Tom Homan, he's always on point.
Yep.
You never get the feeling that Tom Homan wants to be in front of the camera with any type of over-the-top rhetoric or hyperbole at all. And the same thing with Rubio.
Yeah.
Now, Rubio is passionate and strong. He's a different personality than Homan.
Right.
But, I mean, Homan comes out, so many of the times that Homan is in front of the media, he goes, do you understand what's going on here?
Yeah.
Do you know how many women I've seen that have been brutalized and raped and children and this? Do you understand this?
Right.
You're sitting here talking about as if there's no consequences, and he's wonderful at doing that.
He's the best.
And communication skills. We've talked about this. We talked about the first Trump administration. The first Trump administration, the biggest challenge he had was communicating.
Yeah.
And that's what's maddening and has been maddening for such a long time is that if you take what Trump believes, the vast majority of what Trump believes, the American public overwhelmingly agrees with him.
Right.
When his name is inserted into it, boom, it goes the opposite way. But they were behind him. Think about this. He ran on the economy and immigration. And he's looking at the polls and saying, that's where I'm underwater. Why is this? You got to go.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think there's something also to the idea that, I mean, you had and I was telling you that if you saw the first, it was the first I saw, but it was the first set of ads from Jasmine Crockett in the Senate race that she lost in the primary Senate race in Texas. At the end, it said, impeach Noem. This was something they wanted to do in the immediate wake of what was going on in Minnesota. And it wasn't going to get to that point, but they wanted her out. And Trump had his own reasons for wanting her out. I don't know what this does and how it works in terms of in getting the funding done for DHS. But the funding needs to get done. And the president right now, I believe, is in full mode of, you've got to get this funding done. Because it's stupid we're even having this conversation. And now with Noem gone, for whatever reason, then and Tom Homan in place, and everything is settled down, you're not seeing these things day to day, then there never was a reason for defunding them or holding back the funding.
No.
It's now you've really got no excuse. You've got to get this done, and DHS needs to be fully funded, period. And so I don't know. I don't know where it goes with Pam Bondi. I look at it, and again, it's about the job at hand. Taking on the hot button issues, social media approach as Attorney General. That just doesn't work. The binder thing was really the pinnacle of that. That failed drastically. That was a massive fail.
And I know yesterday, CNN was talking about it, and you saw a lot on social media about and it's a couple of days old, I believe, but it seemed to just hit yesterday, probably because of all the war news. But that, Republicans, Trump in his second term is more popular than George Bush or Obama.
Yeah.
And that's great and fine. You need your own people behind you. But there's also the thing is, well, do you support Trump? Yeah. What's the other option?
Right.
But I'm not, I'm a conservative, and I agree with Trump probably. As I've said, normal Republicans probably 60% of the time, Trump probably 70 to 75%.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is no option because the other side's, as Trump said, quote, crazy.
Yeah.
And so there is, but independence is where you need to be concerned about.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter whether you have your own party behind you. It's whether you've been able to communicate effectively to independents.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that so far has not been done in this second term.
Well, the biggest hurdle is...
And it should be, because independents should agree with the vast majority of what Trump is doing.
And the biggest hurdle is, number one, affordability.
Yeah.
And number two, again, you look at the thing with ICE. We understand the radicals going after ICE and everything else. But there's a reason things have settled down with the Tom Homeland approach now implemented. That should have been the approach all along. But it's, number one, it's safer for everybody that's in that scenario. The agents, it's safer for the people in the community, and it can't be this social media soup show. It just can't.
We are Red Eye Radio.
Brought to you by Hotshot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller. At a roadside inspection, inspectors may ask to see supporting documents. These documents can include bills of lading, itineraries, schedules, or equivalent documents that indicate the origin and destination of each trip. They can also include dispatch or trip records, expense receipts related to on-duty/not driving periods, electronic mobile communication transmitted through a fleet management system, and payroll records, settlement sheets, or equivalent documents that indicate payment to a driver. Drivers using paper logs must also keep toll receipts. Supporting documents must contain the driver's name, carrier-assigned identification number, or vehicle unit number that can be linked to the driver, the date, the name of the nearest city, town, or village, and the time. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
We're here Red Eye Radio. He's R-Okla, and I'm Gary McNamara. Just to analyze this whole week, politically after the primaries in Texas and North Carolina, you could tell by the president with the runoff here in Texas, where he wants Paxton to basically drop out.
Right.
And this whole thing about a deal, and then you saw that Gonzalez is not going to run now.
Right, he dropped out as well.
The congressperson,
right,
who apparently had the affair, and the woman
he admitted to having the affair.
Yeah, she committed suicide.
Yeah,
and you look, and plus the immediate attacks on Tallarico that we saw from the Republicans. It was when and they were all ready for all of his quotes.
Yeah,
and and we'll play the audio a little bit later on, but I saw Mark Halperin saying, if the election was held today based on the polls and with the reaction of the Republican Party and the president here, it would be a wipeout.
Yeah.
Major losses in the House. And right now, based on the polls today, the Republicans would lose the Senate.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the challenges there with, the war in Iran, I came in today and went, here we go. The challenge you face is gas prices.
Oh, no, I went to fill up my truck this afternoon, and, wow, the jump was huge.
Yep. I saw $3.19, and it was $2.60-something just a couple of days ago.
Oh, yeah, I think I
right.
paid $3.39 or something crazy like that, yeah.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio. from the Relief Factor Studios.
We are Red Eye Radio. He's R-Okla, and I'm Gary McNamara. Yeah, so when I saw yesterday, Gonzalez, because Trump had come out and said, the stories are out there. They want him to resign.
Yeah.
Or not resign. They want him not to run again.
Right.
And then when you saw the whole thing of him getting involved, and actually telling Paxton, it wouldn't be a good thing that if I endorse the other guy, I just love it. I haven't decided who to endorse, but if I do endorse Cornyn, it wouldn't be a good thing for you to stay in. It's like, well, you sort of let
you pretty
it
much
known.
just said it.
Yeah.
Well, and everybody was saying that they thought that it definitely would be Cornyn that he chose. And I think that had some MAGA rank and file. I don't know how you define today. I don't know how you define MAGA rank and file, but I think a lot
do. I do.
Social media?
Because Politico apparently had an interview with them. And there was a story out there, GOP. It's funny because it's sitting in my hands right now, and it wasn't planned. I was stapling my stuff together during the bottom of the hour. I had to get more
unplanned
staples.
Segue.
Yes, I had to. Can you do the stapler guy again?
You had to go get some staplers for your stapler.
Yes. So it says GOP restrainers say Trump abandoned them, and it's all sourced. Inside the Republican Party.
Yeah.
And so we always ask. Source stories today are not the same as source stories 30 years ago. It's like, is this thing even true?
I know. Yeah.
And it was like, they're saying he's abandoning us because, we were told that he would, not start any new wars and they didn't believe in intervention and all that.
Yeah,
now,
right.
You and I, because his surrogates said it and might have said it in a different way, we never believed it with Trump. We never did. We never thought Trump was an isolationist.
No.
We always thought by what he did especially what he did in his first term, you were looking whether he would be or not, and he just has a different way of doing it. He wants to do everything he possibly can not
to have to put
boots on the ground
right. for long periods of time. If you think about, in fact, using the Moab in Afghanistan, that happened in the first few months of his first term, going after ISIS in eastern Afghanistan.
But he did say, which proves he listens to the show.
Yeah. Uh-huh. I thought about that with Noem because we were talking about Noem yesterday.
We talked about it before.
Yeah.
When you look at so many of the people that started MAGA that are no longer supporters of Trump.
Right.
And a lot of them are the ones that are much more isolationist.
Right.
And jumped on board. I mean, the story does talk about the fact of, and there's been other stories out there. What does J.D. Vance think of all of this?
Well, it's funny because I was thinking of MTG the other day. MTG put out something. I forget what it was. And I thought to myself, she's not quite Liz Cheney, but she would have dinner with Liz Cheney. You know what I mean? And that's a vast difference.
Or
where she was.
Or a sleepover with pillow fights. I don't know. I got that from.
We'll watch a rom-com on Netflix and have pillow fights. I'll bring the wine.
But it's where Trump said, because let me get the way that Politico wrote it here to get it exactly right. Trump, in several dozen interviews in the last few days, brushed off criticism from political allies, upset over his abandonment of America First mantra that he ran on. Quote, MAGA is Trump, end of quote, Trump said.
This is what
you
we've
and I
been
said, yeah.
It's kind of the point I made earlier with Noem. It doesn't matter. You don't get to be him. He'll change his mind. He may change directions. You don't get to be him for every reason. You don't get to jump in the wheelhouse and go, I'm MAGA. I can run the ship here. I can take over, Mr. President, in terms of, whatever job they're doing. You don't get to do that. And we said it yesterday. It comes to, and everybody was making this it was a weird contest. I'm more MAGA than you are. No, I'm more MAGA than you are. And it was like Trump is MAGA.
Well, you know what it was? It's sort of like, and I don't want to make a there's not a direct comparison here, but to many of the supporters of Trump, they were the ones in their minds defining what MAGA is. Where and I sort of look at it as sort of like a hope and change.
Yes.
It's whatever a person believes
That's
it is.
I think that's a great comparison.
Because, MAGA, MAGA is Make America Great Again.
Right.
And America First. Now, the challenge that the president has, and I have been in so much agreement with President Trump's foreign policy.
Yeah.
We went through the whole thing. Not illegal. What he's all everything that he's doing. He's taking huge risks, though, because American presidents don't do this. There are always risks. Even if you're doing something right, there's always the risk. And the risk is here, and you already heard Democrats saying it, and some Republicans are grumbling. Affordability was the issue. He's backed off on illegal immigration. He's backed off on affordability. And now he's more concerned about doing things in other countries, which, by the way, is instead of paying attention to the American public, which is an easy meme to write, but it isn't accurate.
Right.
The things that he is doing in Venezuela, supporting Israel, Iran, will weaken Russia, will weaken China, and those are all in the American public's interest. And so when you had his spokesperson, Anna Kelly, rejected the idea that the president was forsaking his supporters, President Trump is courageously protecting the United States from the deadly threat posed by the rogue Iran regime, and that is as America first as it gets, says Anna Kelly. But what you've got to realize is that doesn't at all caress the feelings of that one portion of the MAGA demographic that believed he was isolationist. He was an isolationist.
Right.
He believed in isolationism. We never bought into that, and we told them they were wrong.
Right.
From the very, very beginning. Whether, if you want to call that the Tucker Carlson portion, did you hear he went after Tucker yesterday too?
Yeah.
But I think everything that I've seen this week, I believe, is the White House. I could be wrong, but to me, it smells of Susie Wiles saying, we have to get our act together. Look at these internal polls.
Yeah.
You cannot.
Yeah.
You've got to have at least one branch, of the legislature, whether it's, probably the Senate. You need to keep the Senate. You can't lose the Senate, and you've got to do everything possible, because I think everything that was done this week shows, after the primaries in Texas and in North Carolina, and then just the polling out there completely, is that we've got to get independence back. And like I said, when I saw gas prices just coming in tonight, I went, oh, no. Because that's the thing.
Yeah.
The president, in the people's minds, forget about what happened in Minneapolis. In the people's minds, the president has been totally successful on the border.
Right.
Without question.
Right.
And now it's affordability. And you can say whatever you want. And we've said this over and over again, to a lot of criticism. But, again, we weren't playing tribalism. We were looking at reality.
Right.
It's not because we're some sort of geniuses. In fact, you don't need to be a genius to look back and see what destroyed the Democrats in 2024. It was ignoring prices. It was pretending that prices didn't exist or didn't matter. And so you can throw out all the GDP is doing great. Look at the stock market. Look at this. It means diddly and squat because everybody is concerned about affordability.
Right. It's and that's the thing is that the gasoline thing we know. I mean, we know what's behind it. I think a lot of us expected it, but one of the first things my wife said to me was like, she was, I won't say happy, but certainly we knew that going after Iran was likely going to happen, or if it was going to happen, it was going to happen with Trump, and it was going to happen soon. But she said to me kind of under her breath, halfway joking, she goes, my car's on empty. I hope gas prices don't spike. And that was Saturday, as everything was playing out. And and when I filled up my truck today, I was thinking of her, thinking of people just that don't, they're not the wonks. They don't, they don't live they know about Iran. They know probably that it's related to Iran, but it's the one more thing issue, right? It's on affordability, the one more thing that we're having to buy, depending on how much you drive. You're having to go to the pump once a week, maybe a couple of times a week, again, depending on how much you're driving. And there are things that just absolutely must be remedied, and there has to be also a new tone. You can't, going after the criminal element of illegal aliens in the U.S., it should always be a priority. Should always be a priority. It's not what you do, though. It's how you do it. The approach. Tom Homan is proof of that. His approach, again, it keeps everybody in that scenario safer. People in the community, the agents doing the job, and you have an approach that is direct. And Tom Homan speaks like law enforcement. We've talked about this going back to James Comey. He speaks like law enforcement. I don't want to hear somebody talk and it come off as a social media influencer kind of approach. If you listen to what Marco Rubio, how he talks, the nature of that job, Secretary of State, is going to be that you're going to be right there with, along with National Security Advisor.
Even with the war, yesterday when the president came out and said, well, yeah, I'll have a say who becomes the next leader of Iran. Mm-hmm. You've just spent this entire week saying it's not about regime change. Now, we know it's about regime change.
You spent all day Sunday, by the way, because Susie Wiles was on a text message meeting with all the surrogates that were going to be on the Sunday shows. That early that morning, she was sending out the talking points saying, this is what we want to convey.
Right. You don't need to say that. Of course, the United States will have some impact. If it's the Shah's son or the other group together, we'll probably have some influence in it.
Right.
You don't need to say that.
Right. Well, because
that's if you're trying to keep your base together and the whole thing is no regime change, when obviously your goal is regime change. Otherwise, and I agree with what they're doing here in this particular case. Iran is unique. It's not Iraq. It's not Afghanistan.
Right.
It's a completely different animal. You're still taking a gamble, but you need to communicate effectively on it. And when your whole point is it's not regime change, and we know it is,
right.
But by the end of the week, you're then saying, well, we're going to have a say in the government there. That's the last thing that you want to say. Even if it's just an advisory role. He said, I'll have some say in it. You don't need to say that.
Because that grows into something much bigger and something that that you maybe didn't intend it to be. And that right there is the spoiler. You can't do that.
We are Red Eye Radio.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
We are Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I guess the point is with the affordability and Iran, and we see gasoline prices going up. That's why I don't believe that the White House needs a sense of urgency to get this thing done, as hard as you can and as quickly as you can.
Yeah.
And we had said this before that, it'd be interesting to see the whole, the Kurds saying that they're willing or might, provide, ground troops and security. That would be huge. But if you can get this, I mean, it's a gamble. And the gamble is, can you disarm the police state portion of Iran,
right,
so you can have a transition government and have free elections? There's still going to be acts of terrorism. We know that. That's going to happen in there. You're still going to have you're still going to have pockets of a rebellion after this. But can you get to that point? That's the big question, because if you can, this is one of the biggest things in modern history that the president will have accomplished.
Yeah. Yes.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Relief Factor Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
Wow. Babylon Bee. Wow. Congress pledges to work tirelessly to expose all sex criminals who aren't in Congress. That vote they took the other day. I don't care what the reasoning is. You need to get rid of that fund.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry. You need to get rid of that fund. You cannot have that over Congress.
No.
You cannot. You just can't. You can't have that. You just can't have that.
You're never going to win that with the public.
Never.
I think in today's age, probably even more so. If you think about it, there is greater insight, I won't say transparency, but we have greater access to information. And when you start hearing things, in fact, I think that the whole pinnacle of it really is the Epstein thing, because what's the idea? The idea is, well, the reason you didn't hear it from, if Trump were involved, you didn't hear it from Biden because Biden didn't want Democrats being exposed. The Democrats don't want to expose any Republicans because the Republicans, would then expose the Democrats that were involved, and they're all just covering up for each other. They're just, this is kind of in that same vein. You can't, as you said it.
You can't win it politically.
You can't have this. You can't have this.
Just can't have it.
And, if you look at what happened with Gonzalez in Texas, this is a scenario that started during the primary season for his seat. Will Hurd used to have that seat. And it's the one that in Texas basically goes from San Antonio way out to El Paso. Most of that is empty land. But it's geographically, it's a massive district. But high-profile story of this woman that he had now admits to having an affair with, and she committed suicide in a very gruesome fashion. And of course, his opponent came in the primary season, saying, these things happen. There were, you had witnesses. Then they had text messages and everything else, and the case was building against him. And there's not a winner here based on this woman's death. There isn't a winner. But politically, you were likely never going to survive. I don't know for Trump, on the thing with Cornyn versus Paxton. if he thinks the Paxton thing may come out, the allegations against him and his personal behavior may work against him. He gets burned if he jumps on board with Paxton. I don't know what's going on there, because it was an endorsement, non-endorsement approach by the president. If I did endorse Cornyn, then I would be asking Paxton to step down.
I think, I could be wrong. This is a complete guess.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't be surprised if I'm right. I think it has to do with the polling. Got nothing to do whether Cornyn, was, because, Cornyn was against Trump at times, as we know.
Yeah.
I think it's the only thing under consideration is the belief that Cornyn can win the seat, and they've got to keep the Senate.
No, I think that's the major driver.
I think that's the major driver
because
I don't think
look
it's
at the money.
Right.
Look at the money, the PAC money, and Cornyn's money that he had. I haven't done the research to find out how much of that was already in a war chest, but Cornyn spent $100 million. He didn't spend $100. Combined with the PAC,
right?
The effort in the primary was $100 million. That tells you, again, it's not always about the money. We've said this, but in this scenario, you're going to have to fight for every seat. You mentioned earlier, look, the idea of losing both the House and the Senate, my gosh.
Well, I also think, because there's a thing, Cornyn's a rhino, as we heard many times before. Well, if Trump says he's not, we've had our disagreements, but I support him because we need to have this. Trump has a lot of clout in the party right now.
He does.
He's got a lot of clout.
And as you mentioned, and every seat counts. I mean, you're gonna have to fight for every single one. You're just gonna have to place your bet on.
And when you look at it right now, I mean, I think that all of a sudden, after the Texas primary and everything else, the turnout, you look at it, I think they're looking and says, we've got the only thing that we can do right now is win. Doesn't matter whether everybody agrees with us, 100%. We need to win.
Yeah.
Because Susie Wiles is probably saying, Mr. President, you don't want to be in the 2 years of your term with the Senate and the House under Democrat control. You've got to save the Senate. Now, the point is, when you look at it right now, and I'm telling you, I would not be surprised if Trump came out and said, well, we've had such success with the tariffs that we're going to lower them from 10% to 3%. Or there might be a stay coming from a judge, and then he would just. But I wouldn't be surprised. Affordability is it, and when you look, here, let me just make my point here stronger. Here we go. Let's get this one story right here. Washington State utility wants 30% rate increase.
Yeah.
California panicking because the refineries, another refinery left. They're panicking to begin with. This thing, if it's over in a month in Iran, and then prices come down. Interim government, the Kurds are a multinational force to help a transition government. That will change everything with energy prices at that point. You don't have to worry about it. The other thing with the tariffs, now they're just 10%. Not as great on a lot of products as they were, which might be, but I wouldn't be surprised if they came down and said that. But look at this at the states. Washington State Utility wants 30% rate increase. California panicking over the fact of, gas prices are going to skyrocket. New York. Just see if I save the headlines. Bunch of different headlines out there. Here it is. Spiking utility prices warn of New York's tough choices to come. New York residents hit one day ago with record electricity prices. Over 1 million households in New York are significantly behind on payments with utility debt exceeding $2.1 billion. Hidden cost. Many residents are facing sticker shock from transitioning to cleaner energy. Investments in grid upgrades and state climate goals are adding to consumer bills. And so Hochul met with utilities. The Democrats are panicking in New York right now.
Yeah.
You've got what you've got to do. Trump's got to be able to communicate that, look, we put these tariffs in to protect American industry. You can sell that.
Right.
We believe they've been mostly successful. We know the court has disagreed with us. We're now going to lower tariffs on another 5,000 products. Look, he was able to he did it with the 200 groceries, items in December. Nobody threw a fit.
Right. Yeah.
He didn't lose any support in his own party.
No.
You cut it, you sit there, still, keep it 2 or 3% to say, but we're still watching them, so we're keeping the 2 to 3%.
If we need to raise them, we will.
Right,
and,
throw all that out.
That whole thing.
But you get rid of it. You dump that, and then you look at the prices, and prices start moderating at that point. Gasoline prices, if the Iran thing could stabilize in a month, and I don't mean that they have a permanent government or elections, that's going to take a while, but transition government, security, you're going to have acts of terrorism and things like that. That's going to happen without question. We know that.
Yeah.
You have to expect that.
Yeah.
But the fact is, they're not shooting missiles. You've got Saudi Arabia then, and the president saying, we've now in talks with Saudi Arabia, Syria, and Egypt, and who else, to do peace deals with Israel. That is going to moderate or decrease the cost of oil across the world. Mm-hmm. The president will be viewed as having one of the great foreign policy victories of his time, and that's what you want to do over the next 6 months. You have to do that. Otherwise, you could lose the House and the Senate.
Yeah, right.
And I know it's unbelievable because the Democrats, as Trump said, quote, are crazy on the issues. They're crazy. And the public knows it. But what affects them every day is affordability.
This is something they're dealing with every day. Everybody deals with it every day. And the gasoline thing is just kind of, again, the one more thing problem, right?
Yeah.
And on affordability. And I think most people know it's tied to Iran, and that if it goes as planned and we can get to a transitional period in their government and long term, of course, we'll only know that years from now. But if it looks like it's heading in that direction, everybody wants that. Most people want the regime change. They want and even though, keep in mind, it's not about regime change. They want that. They want, if they believe that the big evil in terms of sponsoring a state-sponsored terrorism is gone, and that there's a new tone in the Middle East with Arab nations working against Iran and more with Israel. That is mind-boggling in terms of an accomplishment, but it still doesn't get you the win in November because every day they're hit. I'm with you on, because I thought about this yesterday with the changes. I didn't necessarily see the Kristi Noem thing coming this soon. But the changes that need to happen now. You're out of time. So everything has, whatever you're going to do, those moves have to happen now. And you can get away with your base of, all right, tariffs will remain at 3%, 5%, whatever that magic number is.
That doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. You do that, the markets will respond, but more so you'll see companies that'll come in and start to become competitive again, where that had kind of, backed away because they had to start absorbing some of those costs. Or they did at first, and then they started passing it along to the consumer. I don't think we've seen the full effect of it because it's fluctuated so much. But if you do that, if he sets the tone, that's the difference.
And then what happens afterwards? Let's say you lose the House, but you keep the Senate.
Yeah.
Well, then you've got 2 years for the insanity of the Democrats in the Senate. That's where the insanity's in the Democrats in the Senate, but the mega insanity will be coming from the House.
Yeah.
And whoever, if Hakeem Jeffries, they'll be promoting, because look at right now, look at what's going on. You know, the whole transgender thing coming back to Virginia with Spanberger.
Oh, yeah.
Talking about, you saw where they're going to have a course.
Mm-hmm.
The course is going to say that January 6th was an insurrection.
Right.
We all know it wasn't.
It wasn't.
We all know what. And so understand how important it is to keep the Senate, because the Democrats will do they will lie. You know, I got to play the other cut from MS Now, where, you know, they had the guest on Morning Joe going, there's no difference between Tallarico, and they're admitting it. There's no difference between Tallarico and Jasmine Crockett. They're both far left. You know, that's what their Democratic Party is. They're crazy on the issues. You've got to be specific. You've got to stay, as Susie Wiles said, and where I would disagree with her is where she said, 75 and 100 of you people beneath the president must stay, on board and on target,
on point,
on point. But the president doesn't. No, the president needs to be more disciplined than he ever has been in communicating why the Democrats are insane and why the critical thinkers are in the Republican Party led by him.
And then the day after the election, he can go back to doing whatever he's going to do.
Yes. Yeah.
Because at that point, he's done campaigning, you know, unless he's going to endorse and campaign for somebody in 28. Or decide that he's going to run for a third term.
Yeah, I was going to throw that in there, but you got there first. We are Red Eye Radio.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by House Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
A game changer. That is what Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. calls a final rule for stocking standards for retailers participating in USDA's Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program.
This new stocking standard is going to require them all to have a minimal amount on their shelves of real food. Most of them are going to have to double.
The HHS secretary this week at USDA headquarters participated in the announcement with Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins, who explained this final rule's context for retailers receiving federal SNAP funding.
No longer, if you accept SNAP dollars, will jelly count as a fruit, will jerky count as a protein, that starting almost immediately they have to stock more than double the healthy options that they're currently being required to stock.
I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
We are Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So, like I said, we believe there's been a shift this week, that the administration is taking serious now the midterms. And when you look at it, when you look at the state where the Democrats are in right now, it's unbelievable that the Republicans don't win every election 70-30. You know, in any I'll put it this way, in any toss-up state.
Yeah.
There's no reason that independents on all these issues should be favoring the Democrats. You need to communicate effectively. You need to look at this. I mean, you can see it. Washington State Utilities, just 3 stories today. Washington State Utilities, they want a 30% raise. They're panicking in California over where gas prices are going to go because of the lack of refineries. New York, they're panicking over electricity prices, yet they still want to do all the climate change stuff. If Trump can keep the Senate and continue to promote the insanity of the left that people accept already. They know. Democrats know that the Democrats are insane on the radical transgender movement, that men can become women.
Yeah.
And so they're not bringing in any candidates that really anybody buys as a moderate. You know, they tried with Mark Kelly a few years ago. You know, Mark Kelly is no longer, if he was a moderate, he is no longer a moderate. He has embraced the insanity. You win, you win, you keep the Senate. They can't do anything. The discussion, you've got the veto power, you got the Senate. They can't do anything. You keep it going.
You get confirmations through the Senate. You know, if there are some that, you know, you still have to get done by then.
Judges, whatever. You keep them, the Democrats from the Supreme Court.
Yep.
And you have the debate over the insanity of what the Democrats believe.
Yep.
And you see the higher prices in all the climate change liberal states.
Yeah.
That will affect energy prices.
No, that's a great point.
Catch Red Eye Radio live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
We are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Download our Red Eye Radio app today, and you can listen when and where you choose. So to me, that's where you're going right now. If you're not going to get the House, and again, that's not a guarantee that you're not going to get the House. I don't know. Things can change drastically. I don't know how the public will respond if the president is overwhelmingly successful and he is limited in what he can do inside of Iran. But if Iran comes back again and you can see they're on their way and there's peace treaties.
Yeah.
And like I said, I would not be surprised if the president came in and goes, well, that 10% tariff, did they ever officially put that in yet? Was it officially put?
It started. Was it this week? I think. Yeah.
Okay. If he cut it down, if he said, "Look, I realize it's been so successful that we decided to cut it to 3%," which again would be nothing. That's not going to affect that. That would stabilize the market. It would stabilize. It would probably increase the stock market. 401ks would go up. Would be your goal at that particular point. Prices hopefully will moderate. Gas prices will come down after the Iran conflict is over, and that would be hopefully by April, right? By the end of April, it would come down, and then you start promoting the insanity, and you hit the 5 or 6 issues where you know the public agrees with you and what you're working at. And if you sit there, you can even say, "Look, we made some mistakes." When it came to illegal immigration, but we are doing overall the right thing. You don't need to go in and explain it.
Right.
And if they go, well, what mistakes have you made? I go, well, you guys have already covered that one. We're looking to the future. It's about communicating effectively on the issues, the 5 or 6 issues where the public stands with you, landslide numbers, and then even if you do lose the House, you keep the Senate. You can do confirmations, still at that point. The Supreme Court is, anything happens in the next couple of years, is, you still get to, be in charge of that. The Democrats can't pack the court for another 2 years. But I think more importantly, and you and I were having the discussion during the bottom of the hour, you get to contrast what is going on. And that's why I brought up in Washington State, they want a 30% utility increase. Yep. In California, they're scared to death that gasoline's going to skyrocket even more because of refineries, pulling out. New York, skyrocketing electricity prices. Those are just 3 examples. You contrast over that next couple of years, the goal of the Republican Party has to contrast the real things that are going on in those states compared to what's going on and what, you would endorse. You could sit there and say, well, we look at Texas, we look at these, Oklahoma, we look at Florida, just as an example. There's more states out there.
Yeah.
But these are the things, when you enact these policies, it works better. Whenever you have a split legislature, but the presidency, you can stop the Democrats from doing anything. And even if you don't have the Senate, you can block a lot of stuff, but not under reconciliation. If they wish to get to, the 51, they don't have the vice president, though, at that point, do they?
Yeah.
But you use that 2 years to contrast. My belief is the Democrats don't want to change. Not my belief. It's observation.
I think that's 100% accurate.
They don't want to change.
Yeah.
So you have to look at the long game here. And the long game is, and I've said this many times over the last couple of months, even if the Democrats win both houses or one house in November, their long-term prospects are horrible.
Yes.
Because what they believe, the public doesn't buy into. Look, we talked about socialism the other day, the polling on socialism. And Americans that believe in socialism, as they found out, the pollsters said they don't know what socialism is.
Yeah.
They don't even know. They have no idea what socialism is, yet they're for something. And when you say free market instead of capitalism, the majority of Democrats support free markets. And socialism was the point where they said, well, in true socialism, you can't own your home. In true socialism, the government owns the property.
Right.
Owns the means of production is not just industry. It means they own your means of production.
Right.
Which means you don't get to own anything either.
There are no property rights for you.
And then they found out that actually Democrats, by a slight margin, agree more, it's within the margin of error. It's like 94, 95%. In ownership of property, it's equal with Democrats or with Republicans. So all you need to do is you communicate effectively. If you listen to the show for a long time, that's what frustrates us more than anything, is the fact that when you're winning on the issues, but the personalities and the and the way those personalities communicate cannot effectively communicate to the American public what they already believe.
Right. Right.
That's what's frustrating.
Right. Well, because, look at tariffs. I don't believe Trump wants to tank the economy.
Neither do I.
I believe he wants affordability to be fully in place. Right. But there are a couple of things. I mean, obviously the numbers aren't working, at least in that regard. And if he were to make his own decision to lower those tariffs and say, here's where our baseline tariffs are going to be, there may be a few exceptions. I don't know, you could say China. There may be a couple of exceptions on this. But your point in comparing it, then it becomes a red state, blue state thing. That's imperative to see that comparison before the midterm really start to play out. We can see it. All of us wonks, our listeners, people who follow it, we know people are leaving. Companies are leaving the blue states, and they're going to red states.
That story about Massachusetts has lost 180,000 people over the last few years.
Yeah. So
that story just was out, yesterday?
Right.
The day before.
And so you can amplify that. And still, I think if you want to take a victory lap on tariffs, say, here's what we accomplished. Look at everything we accomplished with tariffs. Companies are investing, because he mentioned the other day that even with the court's decision, the vast majority of the companies that have pledged to invest in the U.S. are going through with those plans.
But you know something? Why are they doing it?
Well, they're doing it to get access to the largest market.
No, they're doing it because of the trade imbalance that we have. And when you have a 900, close to $1 trillion trade imbalance, $1 trillion comes back in investment from foreign sources into the United States. Either way, you're getting massive foreign investment. And that's the whole thing with when we're right now where his current tariffs may be found unconstitutional is because he believes that the balance of payments is the balance of trade, and they're two different animals.
Yeah, right.
And so when you have whatever it was, a $900 billion trade imbalance, that money, they have electronic currency.
Right.
It means it's meaningless.
They have U.S. dollars.
Right. They invested back. Massive investment in the United States is coming either way.
Right.
Doesn't matter.
Right. And so you can, there are a few ways you can take your victory lap, and you're pretty much by your base, you're not going to get called out on it, right? And frankly, nobody else is going to get into the wonkish, splitting of the hairs. It's probably not splitting of the hairs or discussion, breaking down of that discussion there and that debate, because if the effect is a positive effect and you start seeing that trajectory change, you just need, quite frankly, you just need to do this to November, and then day after the election, if you decide to raise it to 5% or whatever, I would recommend that.
It's what Democrats do.
It's what Democrats do all the time. But, well, what do they, we need a tax rebate, an extra tax rebate check for American families. Oh, gee, it's an election year. I wonder why they're doing that. Things like this. But there was a reason they did it in December, as you mentioned earlier. It was a great example of them capitulating on prices. And they even stated in their own statement, 200-plus food items were going to be exempt to make it more affordable for families. For me, the discussion, the debate
was
ended
over
there.
At that point, yeah.
And so now, because the question is, could there be a stay from the courts on the new tariffs, on the new 10%?
I think so.
Yeah. I think there could be.
Could be.
If the president makes, when I say you, I'm talking to the president. We know he listens. He sleeps between 4 a.m. and 4:15 a.m. Goes to bed at 4, gets up at 4:15. But we believe he's a longtime listener, first-time caller to Red Eye Radio. But if he were listening to me, I would say this to him. I would say, you get the credit and not the courts. Build out your own victory lap however you need to. Look at what we have done through the tariffs and the threat of tariffs. We're able to leverage all of these things and then just list them. And then you move on and let the effect of the lower tariffs take hold on the markets. But beyond the markets, then retail looks at that and says, okay, we believe we're safe to plan long-term, start hiring in a way that because that's one of the biggest investments. We've talked about it. You raise the cost of doing business. There's two things businesses can do. They can pass it along to the consumer to the point the market will bear. And beyond that, they create efficiencies and they start laying off people or stop hiring at the very least. So investment in people will return when you start seeing that, well, wait a minute, we can now make our 5-year plan and it looks like the tariff, thing is over on a large level and we can move on and make our plans accordingly. When companies start doing that and start making those investments, you're going to see that in the GDP. You're going to see that in the jobs reports. You're going to see that across the board. Another thing on the tariffs, when you keep repeating, we're bringing in so much money, while the people are struggling with affordability, that's not money they're getting.
Right.
They're actually paying for it, and that's a problem because whether they've made that connection or not, eventually they will if this goes on long enough, and that's your problem, is the imagery of the government bringing in more money. Nobody cares about the government bringing in more money unless it's also benefiting the economy, lowering taxes or whatever it might be.
Right, because you're talking macroeconomics.
Yeah.
They're worried about microeconomics.
Exactly.
So you need to talk microeconomics.
That's right.
To the individual and macroeconomics to the investors and industry.
Look,
but you're reversing them and you can't do that.
The day before yesterday, the president had that big press conference and was there with some AI and tech people about them building their own power plants, right? So I was listening to this in my truck. I was running some errands, and I was listening to it, and there's great opportunity. You said micro, and I think of Mike Rowe, the guy who talked about the infrastructure that will be needed to support AI. There needs to be more focus on that and how this is going to. I think the president did a good job during that press conference pointing it out why this is a good thing and what it's going to mean. But you can expand on that. All these things are positive on the economy, and a move on tariffs would be monumental. And we'll see if it happens.
We are Red Eye Radio.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
We are Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Well, just to show you that he's a very angry man, former ESPN broadcaster Keith Olbermann once again incited backlash on social media on Wednesday after he called the late legendary football coach Lou Holtz, who died this week, a legendary scumbag in an ex-post on the day that Holtz was announced dead. What a nice guy.
That's how you do it, right?
Man, he is
Wow.
just.
He's angry.
Did you ever hear him go when he goes after Riley Gaines?
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
he's just, but I mean, he's insane angry.
Yeah.
You just can't compete anymore. So you're afraid that you're getting more competition.
I mean, he's worse than a child.
By the way, when I say it like that, I am not even close to the anger.
No, you're not. You're underplaying.
I'm underplaying it. You're right.
Yeah, right.
It's like you just can't compete. You just can't compete with you just can't compete with even great women. So you don't want to have more competition when you swim.
This guy is an angry person to the core.
I know.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.